Good morning. Welcome to the sixth session of FLEXCON 2020 on active managed buildings and energy performance contracting. I'm Annick Vastiot, project manager at VITO, the Flemish Institute for Technological Research, and I'm the coordinator of the AmBIENCE project, and I'm also your moderator for today. On the agenda for today, we have two presentations. First, we have Nilufar Neyestani, who will briefly introduce you into the AmBIENCE project, and then she will focus on the active building energy performance contract concept and business case. And after this, Jeff Verbeek will present you the ABEPEM platform that is currently under development in AmBIENCE, and that should help ESCOs to make the demand response of the value of demand response tangible. Now, before starting the presentations, I would like to remind you that this session is being recorded and that the slides and the recordings will be made available to you after the session. And of course, we welcome your questions, but please do so via the chat. Now, let me introduce to you the first speaker of today, Nilufar Neyestani. Nilufar has a master's degree in electrical engineering, and she received her PhD degree in industrial engineering and management with a thesis on sustainable distribution network planning, considering multi-energy systems and plug-in electrical vehicle parking lots. Now, currently, Nilufar is a senior researcher in the Center for Power and Energy Systems at INESC TEC in Portugal. She's involved in several national and international projects, also Horizon 2020 projects, and her research interests include demand response, electric vehicles, smart grids, energy system planning and optimization, and multi-vector energy systems. In AmBIENCE, she is responsible for the work package developing the active building energy performance concepts and business model. Nilufar, please, the floor is all yours.
Hello, Annick, and good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to be with you today and present to you our findings in AmBIENCE project. Now I will share my screen with you. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Today, I will be presenting to you the active managed buildings and energy performance contracts as a part of our project AmBIENCE, which I'm going to explain to you a bit later in the slides. The content of my presentation today will start with what is energy performance contracting. Then I will give you a brief introduction to the AmBIENCE projects and the activities that we are doing in this project. Then I will I will go a bit deeper to our activities in developing this new concept on active building energy performance contracting and how we are going to include demand response and flexibility in this concept, and what are the changes and the effects of this incorporation when it comes to the business case and the whole value chain of energy performance contracting. And after that, I will describe to you what is the procedure that we are proposing for the implementation of active energy performance contracting, and what are the changes that are expected in comparison to the current procedure for the energy performance contracting. But first, let's start with a polling session on understanding how familiar you are with the concept of energy performance contracting. So please scale yourself from 1, which is the least, and 5, the most, on how familiar you are with the concept of energy performance contracting before this session. I expect you have around 30 seconds to answer. Okay, good. So from the results, we can see that the majority are on the lower side of being familiar with this concept, and that's good. Don't worry. I will explain to you what is energy performance contracting and how we are going to change it. And then let's continue with our second poll. So you could identify which sector of energy systems you are active. So if you are a market aggregator, technical aggregator, you are from ESCOs, general utility providers, or research and development session. Okay, so the majority are from research and development, and then we have technical aggregators and some from the utility providers and ESCOs, which is very good. So let's start our discussion today with the presentation of what is energy performance contracting. So energy performance contracting, or in abbreviation form EPC, is a form of financing for providing enough finances for the capital improvement and the energy upgrades that are required in a building. And through this improved energy efficiency and improved energy performance of the building, there would be some cost savings, and those cost savings will try to repay this investment and the whole part of the project. In these kind of contracts, usually an external organization, which is typically an ESCO, energy service company, will implement these energy saving projects or renewable projects so that the new streams of incomes would come to the building's billing form, and new cost saving aspects could be achieved. Here in this figure, you can see various stakeholders that are involved in energy performance contracting, with the main focus on the ESCOs, because ESCOs will play as an intermediary when it comes to energy performance contracting. You can see that the energy service company will have to deal with the end users and the host customer, where is going to benefit from the buildings, but also have to have interactions with the building sector, for example, the constructions, with the providers, either equipment or finances, and as well as the grid company, where it can offer the excess production, the flexibility, but at the same time it has financial interactions with the grid for billing and other aspects. What is AmBIENCE project? In AmBIENCE project, our vision is to reduce the building emissions throughout Europe with a focus on electrification that is combined by active control. We know that electrification in buildings is one of the main sources of flexibility, especially when it comes to the heating resources and heating requirements and heat pumps. However, when it comes to the building sector, the statistics show that they are very energy inefficient, and the CO2 emission in this sector is very high. So by encouraging the installation of local production, or encouraging the investment in renewable resources, alongside the electrification, which gives us flexibility in order to combine the consumption with this uncertain amount of production, we can achieve both flexibility that we want and the lower CO2 emission that we want. And these two aspects will give us the consciousness to optimize our consumption in a way to understand when to use this consumption and when to use these local resources that we have. So further achieving cost savings and CO2 emission reduction. The goals in AmBIENCE project is to first extend the energy performance contract to include and incorporate demand response value streams by valorizing the flexibility that can be achieved in active buildings. And by active buildings, we mean those buildings that are equipped with meters, sensors, and ICT technology that help us to optimize the usage of already flexible resources such as storage or PV panels that are available in some buildings. After that, we want to make this active building EPC concept applicable to a broader range of buildings. The current status is that mainly energy performance contractings are applied to public buildings or commercial buildings, and there are very rare cases of residential buildings, even though those have single management and single owners such as social housing. So what we want to do is to extend this application to a broader range of buildings, as well as extend it to cluster buildings and try to add the concept of energy community to this aspect. And in order to do so, we are also developing a tool that supports the forecast of demand response value stream by evaluating and estimating the amount of flexibility that can be achieved in the contracting phase, and then supported with the matching measurement and verification methodology for the operational phase in a way to guarantee this added value stream for those that are going to be involved in this project. We are also going to validate this concept and the tool that we are developing in 2 pilot buildings in Portugal and Belgium, involving real buildings and real ESCOs. And finally, we want to engage all relevant actors and stakeholders when it comes to energy performance contracting, when it comes to demand response or flexibility, in order to hear from them and ensure the applicability of our model. And of course, this webinar is one of the methods that we want to do and achieve this goal and hear from you to improve our work. And as I mentioned before, the expected impact of AmBIENCE project is to reduce emission by actively steering the electricity consumption to times when the carbon intensity is low, as well as shifting it to the times that the price is low so that we could reduce the total energy cost. And by adding this to business case and supporting it with a proper business model, we want to support the investment for accelerating electrification in the building sector and encouraging the investment on the renewable energy resources to achieve that ultimate goal of reducing the CO2 emission and encouraging the flexibility on the demand side and improving the demand response business case as well. We have identified several beneficiaries in this project. One of them, of course, is environment and society, because being our main vision to achieve a reduced CO2 emission, environment and society is going to benefit from that. Consumers, we are giving a main focus on the demand side, and the consumers, what is their preferences, what would be their comfort requirement. So consumers would be one of the main beneficiaries, as well as other more general aspects of achieving a better cost effective aspect in their buildings, having a better, more efficient building. And one of the most important beneficiaries in these projects are energy system stakeholders, DSOs, TSOs, utility providers in general, because not only they can benefit from the investments that are coming to their sector for installation of wind and in general renewable resources, they can also leverage from this flexibility that are being added from demand side, and they can use it for the operation of the system. And of course, ESCOs being the main actor in the energy performance contracting scheme, with an enriched business model and an enriched business case, they can achieve better prospects in their activities. AmBIENCE project started in June 2019 with 8 partners from 4 different countries and from research and commercial sector. We are in Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Belgium, and this project is going to continue until May 2022. It has been funded under European Horizon 2020 calls, and it has a budget of around 2 million euros. So let's start discussing about what is active building energy performance contracting. In order to understand why there is a need for the active building EPC and why there is a need for enriching the current status, we first need to understand what were the barriers for the market uptake of energy performance contracting. Here there is a list of 7 barriers that have been identified in some previous projects that have dedicated their focus to energy performance contracting. And you can see that from these barriers that what it comes out of it is that there is a need in the building sector and there's a need in the energy performance contracting business case for integrating new services with an improved performance on the buildings. In this performance can be on the energy side and the non-energy side. And by non-energy, for example, the comfort of the building users, the security of providing the energy, as well as new value streams to support the engagement of financiers or the investors or even the end users in this new contract. I also encourage you to visit our website and AmBIENCE video to see how these barriers have been affecting the energy performance contracting when it comes to the lower energy efficiency of the buildings and the stakeholders. How are they being affected by these barriers, and how active building EPC can improve that. But when these barriers are identified, on the other side, there's a new opportunity that comes with this new dilemma in the building sector. With these new technologies that are spreading in the buildings, with new ICT, with new sensoring, with these new measurements, buildings are becoming more digital and become smarter. And what AmBIENCE wants to do is to take benefit from this new status that we are facing in the buildings and provide new approaches and new vision towards the use of the flexibility and the demand consumption. First of all, when the buildings are becoming smarter and we have more metering and measurement devices, we can use and can encourage active control. We have more data available and we can track the consumption pattern. We can be more innovative when it comes to, for example, machine learning techniques that is very trendy these days. They are only available now because we have more data available from the building sector. And the active management and the active control of the building will also improve the performance and improve the guarantee on an optimized performance of the building. And through this optimized performance, we can reach a more cost-effective approach in the whole building. And I briefly mentioned before that this more digital building, we can track the other non-energy aspects of the building, for example, the comfort, and try to adapt it to the requirements of the building users, as well as providing a measurement and verification methodology that can guarantee these preferences and the performance that is expected from the building, from both the building energy manager or from those flexibility requesters that they want to use the flexibility of the building. So we come to these 2 aspects. We have on one side energy performance contracting, and we have on the other side the demand response. These 2 have 2 different business cases and they have 2 different technologies. But AmBIENCE wants to incorporate these 2 and back up the energy performance business case with the innovation that comes with the demand response. So this intersection between these 2 is where AmBIENCE and active building energy performance is getting emerged. So there are two-fold or two-sided opportunities when it comes to this. We all know that demand response is very trendy, and there are so many studies that are being dedicated to demand response, but there are still a lack of regulatory support. There is a lack of business support for the demand response implementation and integration. On the other side, energy performance contracting is very promising, but also lacks the impact that is expected from energy performance contracting. Why? Because the demand side is not completely added in a way to be completely guaranteeable to energy performance contracting. So by giving one single EPC model that can consider both of these two aspects, AmBIENCe wants to give a solution to both of these business sides and both of these aspects that deal with the energy consumption on the buildings and on demand side. And for that, we came to a definition for the active building energy performance contracting. And you can see there are some highlights on this definition. First of all, it is a performance-based delivery. We have a focus on guaranteeing the performance. We are going beyond the passive energy measures, which is the current status, and we want to introduce active energy measures. And we want to extend this the basic energy performance contracting to a broader range of buildings with a focus of CO2 emission using electrification and active control. There's also another aspect that we need to consider, which is our proposal is a modular one, and this helps it to be applicable to already existing energy performance contracting, that they can only take the module that are necessary for them, or they can start a whole new active building energy performance contracting on their own. And of course, we are considering an existing building and new buildings to be able to be incorporated in this new definition and concept. Here I have for you a better visualization of what are the changes that active building EPC will cause to the traditional energy performance contracting. Here you can see that there was the client ESCO relation through the performance contract and the loan, and the only factor affecting was the energy efficiency measure. But with the active building EPC, we are adding demand response in this the procedure of the business interactions between the ESCO and client, which of course will cause new business model, and I will describe that a bit later. And this repayment is not only from cost saving, but also from demand response incentives. So there are three main pillars for this new concept. First of all, extending the energy performance guarantees from energy efficiency to also flexibility related measures, extending it to a broader range of buildings, residential, hospitals, educational centers. And the third one is to extend this scope to a cluster of buildings and adding the local energy communities and adding the what could be the business models that could emerge from having these energy communities. Of course, you know that there are a lot of studies that are being dedicated to demand side flexibility, and there are many factors that affect the demand side flexibility, mainly acting as the barrier. But here we want to see how energy performance contracting can help these barriers to become enablers for the demand side flexibility. So there would be a mutual benefit when it comes to incorporating demand side flexibility to the energy performance contracting. Here I have identified 6 main factors that affect the demand side flexibility, but I will go through just 2 of them to show you how energy performance contracting specifically can affect the change of these barriers into enablers. For example, availability of technology is one of the main barriers for achieving demand side flexibility. Energy performance contracting is a financing mechanism where they can provide you the investment that that the building needs for installing, for example, storage devices, for installing metering, for this kind of stuff. So that automatically changes this barrier into an enabler. Another part is measurement, validation, and settlement when it comes to demand side flexibility and how the end user reacted towards the demand side demand response signals. energy performance contracting on its own has the baseline estimation, flexibility estimation when it comes to active building EPC. So provide solution for this barrier and change it to enabler, so helps the encouragement of demand side flexibility. On the other side, the demand response will also give value to the active building energy performance contracting. I'm pretty sure that you're all familiar with various types of demand response that are in the market, available in markets, such as load shedding, load shifting, and more dynamic pricing. And as you can see, as this demand response technologies will grow, the benefits for and the value for the ESCO and for the customer that are involving and using this demand response will also grow. And specifically when it comes to the end customer, by avoiding the higher energy prices and additional revenue streams that it can get from demand response, a better cost reduction can be achieved, as well as having a better understanding of what is the pattern of the consumption on the building, which can open new business opportunities for the building and for the end user and whoever manages that building. So with this aspect, the next point of discussion would be what is the value chain of active building energy performance contracting. Here I have the existing energy service value chain when it comes from the energy, the primary energy, and it goes to a standard energy supplier. And the main activities of ESCOs involve energy supply contracting, ESC, and then energy performance contracting. So where in the energy supply contracting, the focus is more on the supply side and the energy that is being delivered in type of services to the demand side, so the useful energy in megawatt hour. And in the EPC is the cost saving and the energy that has been saved due to the increase of the energy efficiency in buildings. So in the ASC, the focus on the supply side, and the EPC, the focus is on the demand side. And what we want to do is to extend this business model to add active building energy performance contracting and add the demand response and flexibility, specifically flexibility, to this business model with the flexible watt hour that has been added due to the installation of new equipment and due to the activation of this new type of active building EPC. So you can see that the whole value chain is being extended because of this new concept. Also here you can see that the interactions between the actors with the active energy services this is more or less what's happening now, that the energy market and you can see on the top row how the money goes, and the bottom row how the flexibility goes. And this is usually the way that the energy market, the aggregator, the ESCO, and the end user are interacting with each other. But what we want to do and what we are doing is to extend this business model in a way that we could incorporate new interactions when it comes to ESCOs and the aggregators. Here you can see that ESCOs, they can have a client, and a client can have multiple buildings, which is one of our focuses, to extend the number of buildings, and we call it as pooling. This is one layer of the aggregation, but what we want to do is to add it to cluster of buildings and multiple number of clients to ESCOs. So another level of aggregation, for example, from client A to client Z will happen, and there would be a customer aggregation. And then these interactions would be through a technical aggregator and a future entity that we can identify it as a market aggregator that will give the flexibility that has been aggregated from the buildings to the market. And what we are envisaging here is that this the ESCO can be considered as the new technical aggregator and have a double role here when it comes to active building EPC. And the financing can happen through both either directly to a client and to the ESCO, as it is the case now. So here I would like to have another polling session to ask you, how do you see the uptake of active building energy performance contracting with this explanation that I've given to you when it comes to your business activity? What is the scale? 1 being the least and 5 being the most. Okay, it's very good that I see that the majority of answers say that the market uptake could be very practical, and this is one of the aspects that we can discuss later in our discussion in the session for the questions and answers. But going back to our presentation, now we want to discuss the implementation of active building energy performance contracting. Here I have for you the procedure of energy performance contracting. It starts with a pre-contracting phase where you identify a potential client, you identify possible financing, and then if you agree on basic requirements, you will go to the contracting phase where you have deeper calculations, agreeing on the contractual terms, really identifying the aggregators and the actors and the services that are required, and finally the implementation of the contract and the constant monitoring and operating of the building. But when it comes to the active building energy performance contracting, what happens is that you have to add the identifying the flexibility options in the pre-contracting phase. You have to quantify this flexibility option in the contracting phase, and then try to measure this flexibility in the operation and the contracting phase. And for that, we have identified these changes through the following slides. First, in the pre-contracting phase, what happened is that we divided into 2 main steps: pre-feasibility and feasibility study. So first, to identify what are the options for the flexibility. Is there any flexibility already available, or it needs a lot of investment? Of course, if there is it needs a lot of investments, then it is not a good or potential case for active building EPC. Then we are going to the contracting phase, which is our main focus, and the presentation from my colleague is going to give you how we are going to do the calculations and the measurements that are required in this phase, because this is the phase that we are going to identify the baseline that the contract is going to be based on that, and we want to estimate the flexibility and then estimate the financial calculations that comes with this estimated flexibility. And finally, for the performance phase, which is a constant and ongoing aspect for operation and monitoring. And what is important here is the measurement and verification of guaranteed measures. Of course, there is a part for this operational phase that needs this optimization for the operation to be in line with what has been estimated in the contracting phase, but there's also a part to somehow verify that this is going as has been planned. I go very briefly through this tailored measurement and verifications for the flexibility, because here you can see that if we have one baseline estimated and then or being forecasted based on the previous behavior of the buildings, then with these new energy efficiency measures we could have a reduced consumption, and this amount that has been saved needs to be associated with the investment that has been implemented through this specific project. And with this, what has been achieved through flexibility and this demand response, and how the whole building is going according to the baseline, is one of the parts that ensures the guarantees that has been signed in the contracting phase. And as the final poll, I would like to ask you to let us know, with these changes that are going to be happening in this energy performance contracting and this increase in the demand response, how do you see the main effect that is going to happen in the building sector? What is the main impact from this new active building EPC? Good. So the results says that an improved business case through demand response is the highest impact that is being expected. And with this, I can conclude my presentations, and I think we can discuss your answers to these polls, and also we can if you have any questions, please feel free, and I would be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Nilufar, for the excellent presentation where you brought us again new insights on the active building energy performance contracting. We have some questions in the chats. I will start with the first one, which I think is more on AmBIENCE in general. So you said that one of the objectives is to allow consumption when the electricity has a low carbon footprint. How can you assess it?
It is through the optimization of the consumption that is part of the baseline creation. That's how we are doing. There's one part that I think I missed, which is with these aspects, what we need to do is to shorten the periods of the monitoring. And with that, we need to have more constant monitoring of how our consumption is following the baseline that we require in energy performance contracting. So instead of the current status that we have only like monthly assessment, we will have on a daily based assessment. So when you have daily baseline and daily profile of the consumption that you are giving it to your building energy manager, then you can have a better expectation that your consumption is going to follow or at least being dedicated to, for example, the local renewable generation, or going to be shifted where we know that from the market now we have production from the renewable energy resources. So that's one of the approaches that we have, or everybody can have in this aspect.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question is, how do you quantify demand side flexibility in both the pre-contracting and the performance phase?
Actually, we cannot quantify it in the pre-contracting phase because pre-contracting phase is very general. We mainly have only questionnaires, assessment of the buildings, interviews with the, for example, with the investor, with the tenants, with the owner. So pre-contracting phase is very general phase. But the contracting phase is where actually we start gathering some data. For example, gathering historical data that are available from the building, gathering the bills that they have. And that's where we estimate the flexibility, and the details of it comes in Jeff's presentation, how we are doing this estimation, our mathematical approach. And this will also continue in the contracting phase when we have the actual measurement and we have actual data being monitored from the building.
Okay, thank you. We still have a question, a recent one. Do you measure the DSF potential or actual performance? I'm not sure about DSF potential.
Me neither.
Okay, so perhaps the person that asked the question can clarify that. Demand side flexibility. Okay. So how do you
Okay,
measure
demand
the
side
demand side flexibility potential or actual performance?
Okay, when it comes to energy performance contracting, what matters is the performance. So what we do is in the contracting phase, there are certain KPIs identifying this performance are being defined, and we calculate those KPIs. But when it comes to demand side flexibility, what we do is that we develop various scenarios. For example, these scenarios can come, for example, from climate scenarios, from various flexible resources scenarios, load growth scenarios that can give you an estimation on the demand side flexibility for the duration of the project. And for that, what we have to do is to carefully define those KPIs, and that is where the importance of the measurement and verification comes or gets even more highlighted. The term that we usually use is that we have routine and non-routine adjustment factors when it comes to demand side flexibility estimation and or how can I say, verification. For example, given the crisis that we are in, there has been significant changes in the usage in the residential buildings and in the commercial buildings. So if you already had energy performance contracting relying on a certain level of flexibility or certain level of consumption, then you cannot do that. So there is a non-routine adjustment for this verification. But for example, as an example for the routine adjustment, what we have, example, we are with our new forecast, we see that we are experiencing a hot winter, for example, where we didn't consider, for example, in our forecasting. So we should adjust our expectations on the flexibility or expectations on the consumption profile. These are the aspects that are mainly seen in the measurement and verification. That's why we call it tailored, because it has to be adjusted with this added demand side flexibility.
Okay. There is one more question on do you also cover on-site renewables, energy storage assets, or smart charging for electrical vehicles?
Yes,
So
yes.
I think the question
The
is here,
idea.
Sorry.
Tell me. No, please continue.
No, I think the question is here, what do we think of sources of flexibility that can be used in AmBIENCe?
Yes, yes, and of course, deeper and more detailed explanation follows in Jeff's presentation, where he completely covers all the flexibility resources that we are considering. And just as another aspect to make you more interested is that in our pilot buildings, we also have these local resources. We have energy, electric vehicle charging stations, PV panels, and so on. So not only we consider in our mathematical model, but we hopefully going to verify that in our pilot cases.
Okay, we have another question, quite interesting, I think. What type of demand response activation mechanism are you considering? And the question is it fully automated, or do you also have a degree of interaction with customers? Or the consumers,
For the
sorry.
for the moment, we are only considering the fully automated one, and that is actually a very interesting question, and that it's a part of the discussion that Jeff is going to have. So I think we can discuss it a bit further. But for the moment, we are not focusing much on the behavioral demand response in order to ensure the guarantees that we have to include in the contract. So the level of uncertainty that comes to behavioral demand response and interactions to the end users is not what can be still considered as reliable as to be included in the contract. So for the moment, we are mainly considering what can be offered or can be triggered through an aggregator or through an energy manager or ESCO, whatever, who is going to take this role.
Okay, perfect. Then I think we have one last question. I know there is some coming in. A major barrier to condominium heating electrification that I personally experienced, between brackets, is the lack of institutional promotion of coordination between the flat owners. So installing heat pump in individual flats is essentially unviable due to noise pollution. So yeah, it's about the coordination between the different owners, if you have larger buildings which are owned by different people, I guess.
That is actually a very interesting remark, and this is our next step, where we are developing various schemes and possible options of these business interactions. What I have shown is the general part, but as this question also highlights, a client can own several buildings. A building can own several tenants, and what we are doing as our next step is to develop several schemes when it comes to each of these cases, and how all of these requirements, preferences, and aspects when it comes to the interactions of these stakeholders needs to be incorporated or somehow foreseen in the contract. As part of our activities, we have this analysis on the interactions and the interactions between various stakeholders when it comes to each business case. For example, having a heat pump in a multi-tenant building, or having adding one shared heat pump in a complex of buildings. These are the aspects that hopefully is going to be addressed when we analyze the interactions of the stakeholders and further develop the business case.
Okay, thank you, Nilufar. Also, thank you to all the participants for asking us many questions. It's nice to see that you are interested in the topic. I think we can close this Q&A session now and move on to the next presentation from Jeff Verbeek.